6:34, good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
And the countdown is officially on. 1 week to go until the coronation. We will be there at Buckingham Palace.
Oh, yes, we will.
Yeah, there's a great picture of young King Charles here on the Daily Telegraph. 18 years old.
It looks like he's having a mugshot done. But there you
does,
go.
A little bit.
There you go.
Yes.
He's grown into his looks,
Yes,
I feel.
Yeah, I would agree with that, I think.
There's a nice picture on the Express, and actually you can just sort of see it at the top there. It's a priceless moment when a 2-year-old snatches the Princesses of Wales handbag during a visit to the Aberfan Memorial.
Did you see that video yesterday?
No, I didn't see the
Wonderful.
video.
So this child obviously got good taste, just pinches the handbag and then wouldn't give it back. So the Princess of Wales just carries on greeting everybody in the crowd, and the mum just has to kind of grab this handbag out of the child's hand, eventually gives it back. The Princess of Wales just walks off, just lets the baby have it.
Oh, I would have wanted a good route through.
Yeah, very good.
Right.
Anyway, makes for amusing viewing. If you want to watch something today, that's something to put a smile on your face. Some great photos in the Eye this morning from Sudan, something totally different now. British nationals boarding the RAF aircraft at the base in Khartoum. I believe they have finished now, haven't they, those repatriation flights?
Oh, they're finishing today.
Finishing today.
They're finishing today, which sounds, you sort of think, blooming it, there's still people, but they are saying that the numbers are really dwindling.
Yeah, and those doctors we were talking about yesterday, many of them actually did make it onto that flight. We were talking about NHS doctors that were stuck in Khartoum. Many of them have now made it.
And now a pub that I frequent is making the front of the Sun this morning.
Oh.
Believe it or not, I've not been in for a year or two, but anyway, it's up in Barrow, in Furness. It's a picture there is of the £1.3 billion submarine HMS Anson, built in Barrow. Some classified documents were left in the bathroom of the Furness Railway, which used to be the post office. There you go. There you go. So they left. They weren't that important, actually. When you read the details, they weren't really.
That's
that
a great
important.
story. It sounds like drama.
They were left in the toilet at the Wetherspoons. So there you go. The things you find when you go to Spoons. There you go.
I don't know what you might stumble across in Spoons Loo.
It's a great story. The assistant editor of The Spectator, Cindy Yu, is here with podcast host Sean McDonald. Good to see you both this morning.
Morning.
Cindy, let's have a look at the Times, should we? And looking at the NHS strike.
Yes. So obviously strikes are back on because 2 nursing unions have voted against the government's pay offer. So from tomorrow until Monday midnight, there will be another 2-day strike. The government actually managed to limit this one because going to court because of this kind of technicality in the rules. That means that they couldn't actually strike on Tuesday. So a 3-day strike is going to come down to a 2-day strike. But even so, Great Ormond Street Hospital has said that it has serious concerns over its ability to provide for patients given the strikes. And I think this is the concern that's being reflected throughout the healthcare sector. You know, different hospitals have said we literally can't guarantee minimum service with these numerous strikes. And it's not just nurses, it's also junior doctors. So there's worries that actually later on they might combine strikes. Not great for the post-COVID waiting list.
No.
But also no end in sight, really.
I mean, as you say, Cindy, we've heard these warnings before, haven't we? But Stephen and I were discussing earlier, it feels different when it's about children. I mean, children who have no say in their own care.
Yeah, absolutely. We're coming back to that impasse of needing, whether it's an improvement in working conditions or a more sustainable sort of landscape in which their medical professionals are working. But like you say, when it comes to kids, it kind of really, it makes you take a step back. It's like a bit of a jolt to the system. It's something that, yeah, I mean, for all patients, for anybody who's in need of care and treatment, you would hope that they would come to a resolution before the point of having to carry out any strike action. And yeah, there's a more of an added attachment and weight of emotion when it's children we're talking about.
If a child dies as a result of this, there'll be a hell on, won't there?
Yeah, I think so, but it'll be hard because, you know, the unions, what they say is not our strikes that are putting people in danger, it's dangerous working conditions that are putting people in danger. So it's kind of, you know, it's both it's gun to your head kind of stuff. Really.
Rock in a hard place, isn't it?
It was quite interesting this morning talking about the RCN actually arranging staff to backfill them when they go out on strike, which is quite remarkable, really, isn't it?
Yes, and then the RCN says that, obviously they don't want to put anyone in danger, but I mean, the very point of these strikes, working, is that they are threatening the system somehow, so they kind of have to, by the very virtue of striking, make the system come to a standstill, otherwise the strikes wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So, there's only so far they can do without actually accepting the pay offer.
Let's have a look, Sean, at The Guardian, should we? And Richard Sharp, the former chairman of the BBC.
Yes, Richard Sharp resigning yesterday. It took quite a while. I know these things are subject to investigation. You have to go through due process, but I was quite surprised by how long it took for it to play out. Now, The Guardian are reporting it from an angle that surprised me slightly, because they're saying that Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister's under pressure to stop appointing Conservatives to key positions at the BBC after Richard Sharp's resignation prompted criticism that the party had basically undermined the broadcaster by flooding it with cronies, is how they're wording it. I don't think that Rishi Sunak will be particularly perturbed by this, because it gives him the opportunity to appoint somebody else who's going to preside over in the BBC for the next, would it be 5 years, maybe 6 years, and with what I believe will be an outgoing Tory government. I think the main angle I would like to see pushed is that the government shouldn't really have as much of an input into this. Whether you're red, whether you're blue, Labour, Tory or otherwise, I think it should be a completely independent process, because, Labour will have appointed their chairman as well, so they're not without wrongdoing, but I think in this instance it has been such a shocker. Some of looked at the sort of process of Sharp's appointment. His name was leaked to the media. He discussed the job with Boris Johnson. He even discussed the arrangement of the personal loan prior to his appointment, and it stinks to high heaven of cronyism, to be honest.
But part of me would sort of say, well, look, he's resigned because there was sort of perceived.
No.
It was a perceived wrongdoing, wasn't it?
It's not a perceived wrongdoing. You can't be helping the Prime Minister acquiring £800,000 personal loan. That's not perceived wrongdoing, Stephen. That is absolute and unequivocal wrongdoing.
But, well, if it's linked to his appointment.
But it is linked to his appointment.
Is it though?
But so if he prior to
hold on. But my other point is.
Stephen, hold on.
No.
Come on.
But my other point is, what is wrong with political appointments in something like the BBC.
I'll tell you, Stephen. I'll tell you what is wrong.
If anything is a political animal, it's
if you are the chairman of the national broadcaster, you cannot sit down with the Prime Minister and say, by the way, get me this job. I can pull a few strings. You'll get an £800,000 personal loan. Viewers watching.
That's what we don't know happened, right? We don't know that conversation happened. That's the problem, because it looks really, really bad. Like, on the one hand, he's procured this loan. On the other hand, he's got this job. The linkage in between is what we don't know necessarily happened. And for Richard Sharp, his own defence is that he told Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, every single step of the way. Simon Case now says he can't recall those conversations. So Richard Sharp, to be very, very charitable, thinks that he did everything right.
Yeah.
He clearly had a direct line to the Prime Minister that not all candidates for this job would have done. But Simon Case now also says that he never had that conversation. So you can see why, I agree, Sean, it does stink, but I just don't know if there's a smoking gun to know that conversation.
But does it matter if these are political appointments?
Well, I think the BBC institution is so strong inside that if anyone was trying to push party line, we would hear about it.
Yeah.
In the sense that the people who work with Richard Sharp over the course of his appointment actually say that he was quite a good chairman, that he didn't push any party lines. And I think, political appointees don't necessarily have to be politically card-carrying, loyalists. So, if Rishi Sunak will appoint someone, because that's the way that the job works, but he doesn't have to appoint someone like a former Tory MP or something like that.
I think, if Sunak was to be sagacious in his sort of forward planning, then he would say, in order to restore credibility, we will leave it to an independent panel, and I think it would probably restore a bit of much needed credibility for the party if he was to say, let's make this independent, especially if the Conservative administration were the ones to sort of implement that.
Rishi Sunak was distancing himself from the whole thing, wasn't he? Richard Sharp was his former boss.
Anyway,
Cindy, let's head over to Sudan now. We've been talking about it this morning, but the Russians are there. Putin's top mercenaries are apparently fighting in Sudan.
Yes, so they're definitely Russian mercenaries. This is the Wagner Group, the very, very infamous Wagner Group that can be found in most kind of African conflicts, it seems. They're mercenaries, as you say. There's a real question over how much they're directed by the Russian state. Nevertheless, they're clearly very, very close to the Russian state because the person who owns them, Prigozhin, is known as Putin's chef. So, again, we're talking about personal relationships here. And so anyway, they deny that they're on the ground there, but various sources have told the Eye that they've spotted white paramilitaries or Wagner Group uniforms. And basically, the idea is that Sudan has so much gold in terms of mined gold that the Wagner Group wants to secure this route of gold out of the country, possibly to fund the Ukraine war.
Why would... The one thing that strikes me about this, I don't know, is it just me being over-analytical, but it sounds quite subversive. Why would they then do it in Wagner Group uniforms? If this was actually happening, wouldn't we want to keep it
Well, I honestly
below the
think
radar?
these could be like mercenaries, just companies taking contracts. I mean, that's what mercenaries do, right? They go around the world, they look for conflicts, they help, entrenched conflicts. In Sudan, it clearly seems like there's a civil war going on where no one side is coming out. So they seem to be supporting the RSF, Hemeti's side, with various weaponry and obviously manpower. Apparently it's a known secret on the ground in Sudan. So I just don't know if it's state directed, because it actually, at various points during this war in in Ukraine, there has been moments where the Wagner Group has actually criticised Putin for not going far enough. So I think to some extent they do have operational independence.
Right. Oh, interesting. Can I just get you, while you're here, in terms of what is going on with China and Russia and Ukraine, and I don't know if it's happened yet, but there was talk of a call between Xi Jinping and Zelensky.
Yeah, it happened on Wednesday.
Right.
We weren't sure if it was ever going to happen because it was talked about in March, then it never happened, and then suddenly it happened on Wednesday. So real questions over why it happened then. Could it be that Macron's visit, Xi Jinping was trying to give the French president some face to say, we can be the West's best friend, possibly? Or could it be that the Chinese ambassador to France, I don't know if you guys covered this on the show last weekend, made a massive gaffe saying that post-Soviet states don't actually have legal status to be sovereign on television, and that was very bad. And so it could be that they're trying to walk back that line as well. So yeah, China's now sending a mediating envoy to Ukraine and trying to kind of really step that up. We'll see.
It's quite amazing, really, that China's coming out as the peacemaker.
Well, we'll see. Let's see how it goes, actually.
Yeah, well, at least wanting themselves to
let's
appear like the peacemaker. We'll say that much, shall we? Sean, let's look at something totally different now, and this is a bid to ban tourist tax.
Yes. To simplify that for anyone who's unaware, the tourist tax, or basically the scrapping of the tourist tax, was the scrapping of VAT refunds for foreign visitors coming to the UK who are shopping, and it is actually having quite an impact on the UK economy for big fashion brands and boutiques, but also for small businesses as well. You've got, I'm going to butcher his name here, but it's the M&S bosses, it's Stuart Mason, Marie LeBlanc, who's head of Victoria Beckham's fashion brand, is saying it would boost the economy. But you've even got former Conservative cabinet ministers like Ian Duncan Smith chiming in and saying that it's time to reverse this. I'm not sure, does anybody know the fiscal reasoning for actually scrapping it in the first place?
Well, they reckon there'd be more... to raise money. I thought they would raise money by...
It's tremendously short-sighted, isn't it? Because the point that's being made as well, and I can completely see where people are coming from, is that when it comes to people coming from, whether it's Asia, America, or from South America, they're looking at...
Well, they're all flocking into M&S for a pair of knickers.
But we're talking about the economy. You look at people who come to places like, whether it's Bicester Village or they want to go shopping in London, and it makes a difference in Harrods. And if they're looking at their cultural reasoning for coming, and then they're thinking, and also shopping would be a great bonus, they might be looking at Milan, they might be looking at Paris, and it is tremendously short-sighted. And I never thought I'd say this, but I completely agree with the Daily Mail, and I think that there should be a reversal of this, because it will raise money in the short term, but now that we're seeing some fiscal recovery post-COVID, I think it's time to now be a wee bit more future and forward thinking.
So sometimes cutting tax raises revenue.
It can do.
Oh, I'm going to hold you to that, Sean.
Yeah, sometimes there's a key word there.
We've got 1 minute left, so Sean, I think we should talk about barbecues because we've been talking about it this morning.
Yes.
We'll keep your one for next time, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's talk about barbecues. So 50% of women think they're better at cooking barbecues than men.
Yeah, 50% of women think they're better at cooking barbecues than men. The patriarchy has suffered a major dent.
Well, I mean, they're wrong, clearly.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because I always say, and this isn't me trying to paint myself as, aren't I the progressive feminist? But I just think women tend to be better at most things.
Yes, very
and especially when it comes to cooking, I'm far too impatient. I'm like, let's just get this cooked and get it out. I think it's something that needs a women's touch. So I'm backing the women on this one.
Oh, yeah. So you don't want to stand behind the barbecue with your striped apron on?
I'd rather be sitting with a beer, maybe taking care of the music. Yeah.
I'm not sure that is the feminist perspective, actually, Sean.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I may have painted myself or pushed myself into a corner there. Not what I meant. I apologise.
Men
I'll
can't
have
win.
a beer. The women can be on the grill.
Cindy, what do you make of it?
I would
To
help.
be honest, I didn't even have a garden, let alone barbecue, so I have to come back to you on that one because, I mean, growing up, it was always what the men fight over, isn't it?
Yeah.
They were like
There's
all
something
clamouring
weird.
to be
There's
first.
something weird about
So
barbecue.
funny.
It's like an open flame caveman
Something
thing.
about fires brings out the primitive instinct.
Yeah.
Oh, quiet.
They must stand around it,
Yeah, must.
often with a beer in hand.
Yeah.
It has to be a group project.
But there you go, it's the thing. So if women want to cook the barbecues, but then we're all accused of misogyny.
I don't
As a
care who
result.
cooks it, as long as I'm eating at the end of it. That's what I'm
there you
happy.
go. Lovely. Thank you both very much indeed. We'll see you a little bit later on.